You are not changing because you keep obeying every unexamined thought that enters your mind. If you want to become unrecognizable in a single week, you must first stop treating your reactions as truth and start judging them with reason. Most suffering begins when you forget what is within your control and what is not, and you allow external events, opinions, and impulses to govern your inner life. This series will bring your attention back to that boundary and force you to see how your daily choices are shaping your character more than any circumstance ever could. If you are willing to examine yourself without denial, subscribe and stay here, because this is not entertainment. It is a return to disciplined thinking shared with those who are ready to govern their own mind instead of being governed by it. Number 1. Master your thoughts through discipline. You think your life will change when the world becomes easier. It will not. You think your mind will become calm when other people become fairer, when work becomes lighter, when your past stops returning to you, when people finally understand you, when the pressure lifts, when the noise fades. It will not. The mind does not become strong because life becomes gentle. The mind becomes strong because you govern it while life remains what it has always been, uncertain, demanding, and indifferent to your comfort. This is where your beginning must be, not in hope, not in complaint, not in the fantasy that someday conditions will respect your peace. Your beginning is the recognition that your mind is either ruled by you or ruled by whatever walks through it. Right now, many people live as if their thoughts are facts, as if every feeling deserves obedience, as if every impulse should be followed because it was felt with intensity. This is the first weakness. A thought enters, and immediately it is treated like a command. A fear appears, and the body begins to obey it. A memory rises, and the whole day is poisoned. An insult is heard, and pride rushes in like a servant with no master. A desire appears, and reason is pushed aside as if it never existed. This is not life under your own rule. This is captivity. And the tragedy is not that you have thoughts. Every human mind has them. The tragedy is that you have not yet learned to stand between the thought and your consent. You are not responsible for the first movement of the mind. A shadow may pass through it without warning, but you are responsible for what happens after. That is where your freedom lives. Between the impression and the response, there is a narrow space, and in that space your character is born. The untrained person collapses the moment an impression appears. The disciplined person examines it. The untrained person says, "This is unbearable." The disciplined person asks, "Is this within my control or not?" The untrained person says, "I must react now." The disciplined person says, "I must judge rightly before I act." The untrained person is dragged by the noise of the mind. The disciplined person trains the mind to answer only to reason. If you want to become unrecognizable in 1 week, then begin here. Stop treating every thought as worthy of attention. Not every thought deserves your welcome. Not every desire deserves your pursuit. Not every fear deserves your obedience. Some thoughts are simply disturbances. Some are old habits wearing new clothing. Some are born from vanity. Some are born from anger. Some are born from the wish to escape discomfort. Your task is not to let them dictate your life. Your task is to test them. Hold them up to reason. Ask whether they belong to what is up to you. Ask whether they lead you toward virtue or away from it. Ask whether they make you steadier, more just, more self-controlled, more courageous, or whether they merely make you noisier inside. The person who has no discipline in thought is not free even if no one is controlling him from the outside. He may live in a large house, speak with confidence, and be praised by many, yet he remains internally scattered. He is owned by appetite, by fear, by comparison, by resentment, by the memory of being slighted, by the hunger to be admired. He spends his day entertaining what should be dismissed. He gives his inner throne to whatever disturbs him most. That is not strength. That is surrender with a polished face. There is no noble life without attention. Attention is not merely focus, it is moral vigilance. It is the habit of standing guard over the mind. It is the refusal to let the soul drift into useless fantasy or emotional excess. It is the decision to remain awake while your lesser impulses beg for sleep. Every day your mind is being trained by something. If you do not train it deliberately, then the world will train it by force. Social approval will train it. Fear will train it. Lust will train it. Anger will train it. Envy will train it. Convenience will train it. The mind that is not disciplined becomes a servant to whatever is loudest. The disciplined mind learns to remain with truth, even when truth is difficult. This week, begin by observing your thoughts without rushing to become them. When anxiety comes, do not say, "I am anxiety." Say, "Anxiety has appeared." When anger comes, do not say, "I am angry, so I must speak." Say, "Anger has appeared, and I must judge it." When shame comes, do not say, "I am broken." Say, "A feeling of shame has arisen, and I must examine whether it rests on anything true." This is not wordplay, this is freedom. The moment you separate yourself from the first impression, you regain the space needed for wisdom. You are no longer the leaf in the wind. You are the one deciding whether to move. Most suffering is made worse by the second thought, not the first. The first is often automatic. The second is chosen. The first says, "This is hard." The second says, "I cannot bear this." The first says, "They ignored me." The second says, "I am nothing." The first says, "I made a mistake." The second says, "I am disgrace itself." The first is an event in the mind. The second is a judgment. The first can happen to anyone. The second reveals whether the mind has been trained. If you wish to become unrecognizable, then stop feeding the second thought. Refuse the dramatic interpretation. Refuse the story that makes every inconvenience into a catastrophe and every wound into an identity. Your life changes when your judgments change. Not because the world becomes different, but because you become harder to disturb. A man who can no longer be easily misled by his own mind is dangerous to his former self. He no longer wastes entire days in imaginary conversations. He no longer rehearses revenge in private. He no longer magnifies every social slight into a personal tragedy. He no longer confuses being offended with being harmed. He no longer confuses discomfort with danger. He no longer confuses desire with duty. He learns to say, "This is only an impression. It has not yet proved itself. I will not surrender my reason to it." Do not underestimate the power of the internal conversation you keep with yourself. Most people speak to their own minds with carelessness. They repeat their fears until the fears gain authority. They repeat their grievances until resentment hardens into character. They repeat their excuses until cowardice becomes habit. They repeat their self-criticism until weakness feels like truth. You must speak to yourself with firmness and honesty, not cruelty, firmness. There is a difference. Cruelty weakens, truth strengthens. Tell yourself what you are doing when you are doing it. I am avoiding. I am craving approval. I am trying to escape discomfort. I am making this about my pride. I am surrendering control over what is not mine. Such honesty cuts through self-deception faster than any comfort ever could. The mind becomes stable through repetition, not by sudden inspiration, but by repeated acts of governance. Each time you pause before reacting, you strengthen the ruler within. Each time you refuse a useless thought, you strengthen your attention. Each time you endure a small discomfort without complaint, you strengthen your command over desire. Each time you correct an unjust judgment, you strengthen your rational nature. A week of this will not make you perfect. Nothing human becomes perfect in a week, but it will make you different. It will make you less available to weakness. It will make you harder to manipulate. It will make you quieter inside. It will make you less theatrical, less impulsive, less enslaved to appearances. Begin each morning before the world lays its hands on your mind, before the messages, before the noise, before the demands, before the habit of reaching for distraction. Sit down and face the day as it is, not as you wish it to be. Say to yourself, today I will encounter interference, impatience, pride, neglect, delay, misunderstanding, and the temptation to abandon my own standard. None of this can surprise me, none of this can ruin me unless I hand over my judgment. Today I will not ask the world to behave with justice before I behave with justice. Today I will not wait for comfort before acting rightly. Today I will govern my judgments, not merely my schedule. This is how you begin with strength rather than drift. Then name the areas where your mind usually falls. Do not lie to yourself. If you are easily provoked, name it. If you are hungry for praise, name it. If you fear being overlooked, name it. If you become lazy when nobody watches, name it. If you become anxious when plans change, name it. If you obsess over how you are seen, name it. These weaknesses do not shame you. Hidden weakness controls you. Known weakness can be trained. The moment you can see your own defect clearly, you can begin the work of correcting it. What remains vague remains powerful. What is confronted loses some of its authority. The discipline of thought requires that you stop granting importance to what does not deserve it. A compliment does not make you noble. An insult does not make you worthless. A promotion does not make you good. A loss does not make you bad. Being included does not prove your worth. Being excluded does not erase it. These are external events. They may be pleasant or unpleasant, but they do not reach the core of your character unless you let them. Your character is built in the judgments you make about them. This is why the untrained person is ruled by applause and shame, while the trained person remains steady under both. He knows that the only true good is virtue, and the only true evil is vice. Everything else is material for practice. If this sounds severe, it is because life is severe. The world does not reward your weakness with mercy simply because you feel hurt by it. It responds to your habits. It reflects your choices. It reveals whether you have learned to live as a rational being or merely as a creature of impulse. And yet there is comfort in this severity because it places your fate back into your hands. Not the whole of your fate, but the part that matters most. You cannot control what happens to your body in every case, but you can control your use of what happens. You cannot control every opinion formed about you, but you can control whether you become dependent on them. You cannot control the rise of every feeling, but you can control whether you obey it. This is enough. It has always been enough for a noble life. The person who masters thought learns to distinguish appearance from reality. Something appears insulting, but perhaps it is only clumsy speech. Something appears threatening, but perhaps it is only convenience. Something appears desirable, but perhaps it is only temptation dressed as promise. Something appears unbearable, but perhaps it is merely difficult. The untrained mind accepts appearances at once. The trained mind delays judgment until it can ask whether the appearance matches reality. This delay is not hesitation, it is wisdom. It is the soul refusing to be stampeded. Practice this throughout the day. When a thought arrives, do not answer it immediately. Pause, breathe, name the impression. Ask what part of it belongs to you and what part belongs to chance, other people, or the body. Ask whether reacting would be an act of justice or merely an act of habit. Ask whether the thought leads toward self-command or self-betrayal. The more often you ask, the less power random thoughts will have over you. You are teaching the mind that it will not be obeyed just because it arrives with urgency. There will be moments when the body resists this work. It will want the ease of old patterns. It will want the quick comfort of distraction. It will want to check the message, check the mirror, check the approval of others, Check the news, check the feed, check the fantasy, check anything except itself. Do not be surprised. The body seeks rest. The untrained soul seeks escape. Your job is not to indulge every request for escape. Your job is to remind yourself that ease is not the same thing as good. A life of endless comfort produces a soft mind. A mind that can endure restraint becomes capable of virtue. This is why voluntary discomfort is useful, not as punishment but as training. Choose small discomforts deliberately. Let yourself feel hunger for a little while before eating, so you know you are not commanded by appetite. Let yourself accept a cold shower or a harder chair or a simpler meal, so you remember that comfort is not a master. Let yourself go without instant entertainment, so you can see what thoughts remain when distraction is removed. Let yourself walk without headphones. Let yourself sit with silence. Let yourself finish a task without rewarding yourself for every small effort. These practices do not make life harder for their own sake. They make the mind harder to break. The reason many people remain weak is not because they face too much hardship, but because they avoid too much of it. They flee every friction, and so they never learn that they can endure. They interpret every difficulty as a sign that the situation is wrong, when often it is only a sign that they are untrained. A disciplined mind does not seek suffering, but it does not panic when suffering arrives. It uses hardship as a place to exercise virtue. If the day is difficult, then patience can be practiced. If others are unfair, then justice can be practiced. If plans are ruined, then acceptance can be practiced. If desire is strong, then self-control can be practiced. In this way, nothing is wasted. Your thoughts must serve your character, not the other way around. This means that every morning you should set a standard not based on feeling, but on virtue. Today I will be just. Today I will be self-controlled. Today I will be courageous. Today I will be wise. These are not empty words. They are the shape of a life. Justice means you will not deceive, manipulate, or exploit. Self-control means you will not chase every appetite. Courage means you will not flee the necessary difficulty. Wisdom means you will not mistake what is fleeting for what is good. If your thought life does not support these, then your thought life is not under discipline. You may notice how much of your mental suffering comes from rehearsing what has not happened. You imagine the failure, the rejection, the humiliation, the loss, the argument, the future disgrace. You spend real emotion on invented events. Then, when the day itself arrives, you have already lived through it in your imagination and weakened yourself before reality even touched you. Stop this. Refuse to live in the theater of your own fear. Bring the mind back to what is present, what is here now, what is actually required now. What judgment is needed now? What action is within my power now? The future is not yours yet. The past is gone. The present is where virtue lives. The same discipline must be applied to resentment. Many minds stay polluted for years because they keep revisiting old injuries, as if repetition could produce justice. It cannot. It only reopens what should have healed through right judgment. To brood over what others did is to give them residence in your mind long after their action has ended. This is surrender. The injured person has a right to truth, but not to endless inward poisoning. Ask yourself whether your resentment is protecting justice or protecting pride. These are not the same thing. Justice seeks what is right. Pride seeks to feel elevated. The disciplined mind chooses justice and releases the rest. It is also necessary to correct your relationship with success. Success does not make you superior. Failure does not make you lesser. Both are external, both are material, both can be used well or badly. The only real question is whether your conduct remains noble in either condition. A person can be praised and still be vain. He can fail and still be honorable. He can be ignored and still be strong. He can be admired and still be shallow. Therefore, do not measure yourself by the world's applause or disapproval. Measure yourself by whether your mind remains obedient to reason and your actions remain aligned with virtue. During the week, keep returning to 3 questions. What is in my power? What is not? What judgment am I choosing right now? These questions are simple because truth is simple. Much suffering comes from refusing to answer them. You fret over what others think, not in your power. You worry about the outcome of work, not fully in your power. You rage at a memory, not in your power. You crave certainty, not in your power, but your judgment of these things, your conduct toward them, your discipline in the face of them, that is in your power. That is enough to build a life. That is enough to become different. Do not wait to feel strong before acting strong. Strength is built in the act. The hesitant person says, I will begin when I feel ready. The disciplined person says, I will begin because this is right. Feeling ready is unreliable. Duty is not. Your mind becomes clear through use, not through waiting. The first day may feel awkward. Good, that means you are changing. The old mind will protest. Good, that means it is losing its authority. Continue. Continue when the impulse to quit rises. Continue when no one notices. Continue when the practice feels dry. Continue when the mind offers excuses dressed as reason. Especially then, continue. A week of disciplined thought does not mean that no disturbing impression will arise. It means that you will no longer kneel before every one of them. The thoughts may still come, but their reign will be shorter. The judgments may still tempt you, but they will meet resistance. The urges may still pull, but they will not always win. This is real progress, not the absence of challenge, but the presence of governance, not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be ruled by feeling. Not the absence of pain, but the refusal to add moral surrender to pain. At midday, pause and check your mind. Have you drifted? Have you become careless? Have you started chasing distractions? Have you begun to speak to yourself weakly? Have you let one thought become 10? Have you mistaken agitation for importance? Return, that is the work. Return without drama. Return without self-hatred. Return because the soul that abandons itself in the middle of the day abandons itself in small pieces until there is little left to defend. The person who returns again and again is not weak. He is trained. He knows that discipline is not proven by never wandering, but by refusing to stay lost. In the evening, examine yourself without excuse. Ask what judgments ruled you today. Ask where you gave your mind away. Ask where you reacted instead of chose. Ask where you obeyed desire when you should have obeyed reason. Ask where you acted with justice, where you acted with restraint, where you acted with courage, where you failed. Do not condemn yourself theatrically. That is vanity wearing the mask of seriousness. Simply see clearly. The point of review is not despair. The point is correction. A man who cannot face himself cannot improve himself. A man who faces himself honestly can be rebuilt. This nightly examination is a form of dignity. It says that your soul matters enough to be watched. It says that you refuse to drift into sleep with your own failures unacknowledged. It says that you are not content to remain the same tomorrow as you were today. If you do this for 1 week, you will feel the difference immediately. Your mind will become less scattered. Your reactions will become less automatic. Your attention will become cleaner. Your self-respect will grow, not because you were praised, but because you kept faith with reason. There is a powerful truth many people never accept. The mind loves what it repeatedly does. Whatever you feed, you strengthen. If you feed complaint, complaint grows. If you feed comparison, comparison grows. If you feed lust, lust grows. If you feed resentment, resentment grows. If you feed rational reflection grows. If you feed gratitude for what is given and discipline toward what is required, these too grow. You are shaping your inner life constantly, whether deliberately or by neglect. There is no neutral ground. To be careless with your mind is to train it poorly. To be attentive is to train it well. Therefore, cut away what weakens your judgment. Reduce useless noise. Reduce unnecessary input. Reduce the endless habit of consuming the opinions of strangers. Reduce the compulsive checking that fractures attention. Reduce the conversations that exist only to feed vanity. Reduce the habits that leave you morally tired and mentally thin. None of this is loss. It is purification. A mind cannot become clear if it is crowded with everything. Clarity requires removal. The disciplined person knows that less distraction often means more life, not less. Do not ask for an easier life. Ask for a stronger mind. An easier life may spoil you. A stronger mind will serve you anywhere. Ask not to be spared every discomfort, but to meet discomfort without disgrace. Ask not for everyone around you to become wise, but for your own judgments to become wise enough that their folly cannot govern you. Ask not for perfect conditions, but for a soul that remains steady within imperfect ones. This is the proper prayer of a Stoic life, not escape from the world, but mastery of oneself in the world. You may have spent years being unfaithful to your own reason. You may have treated weakness as identity. You may have let your moods choose your actions. You may have let your fears make your decisions. You may have let your cravings determine your priorities. But none of that must remain true. A human being is not fixed by his past if he is willing to govern himself now. The past explains your habits. It does not excuse your surrender. From this moment, the mind can be trained. From this moment, the body can be disciplined. From this moment, the judgments can be examined. From this moment, the life can begin to turn. And if you do this seriously, you will become unrecognizable in 1 week. Not because you will look different in the mirror, though perhaps you will stand differently. Not because every problem will vanish, though many will lose their hold on you. You will become unrecognizable because your mind will no longer be in constant rebellion against your own nature. You will no longer be led around by every passing thought. You will no longer be so easily offended, so easily distracted, so easily tempted, so easily defeated by the inner weather. You will begin to resemble a person who lives under command, not impulse. A person who knows what is his, what is not, and what he must do regardless of either. That is the beginning of freedom. Not getting everything you want, not avoiding every wound, not controlling the world. Freedom begins when the mind stops serving what is low and begins serving what is noble. When your judgments are disciplined, your life becomes cleaner. When your life becomes cleaner, your actions become firmer. When your actions become firmer, your character becomes visible. And when character becomes visible, you no longer need to announce who you are. It will be shown in the way you think, the way you speak, the way you endure, the way you choose, and the way you return again and again to what is right. So do not leave this as another impressive idea that flatters you for a moment and then disappears. Take it into the day, take it into the morning, take it into the hour when you are provoked. Take it into the hour when you are tempted. Take it into the hour when you are tired and would rather drift. Stop, examine, judge, choose, return. This is the work. This is the only work worthy of a rational soul. And if you do it with seriousness, your mind will no longer belong to chance. It will belong to reason. It will belong to virtue. It will belong to you. Number 2. Control emotions. Transform your inner self. You believe your emotions are telling you the truth, but many times they are only telling you what your mind has already judged. The feeling comes after the judgment. The anger does not appear because the event itself controls you. It appears because your mind has decided what that event means. The insult is not the complete source of your anger. The interpretation you attach to it creates the disturbance. The delay is not the reason for your frustration. The belief that things must happen according to your preference creates the frustration. The person's words are not the entire cause of your pain. The judgment you form about those words gives them power over you. This is where the disciplined life begins. You must stop blaming every emotion on the outside world and start examining the movement inside your own mind. The world presents events. Your mind gives them meaning. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a responsibility that belongs to you. If you ignore this responsibility, you become a person who is constantly controlled by circumstances. If you accept it, you begin the work of inner freedom. Many people spend their lives trying to control what was never placed under their authority. They try to control how others speak, how others behave, how others judge them, how quickly opportunities arrive, how easily problems disappear. When reality refuses to obey them, they experience anger, anxiety, and disappointment. But the problem is not always the situation. Often the problem is the demand they have placed on reality. They have created an invisible agreement with life, expecting life to follow their wishes, and when that agreement is broken, they suffer. A disciplined mind does not demand that life become convenient. It prepares itself to meet life correctly. It understands that emotions are signals, not rulers. They can inform you, but they should not command you. Anger may reveal that you believe something important has been violated, but before you act, you must ask whether your judgment is accurate. Fear may tell you that danger exists, but you must examine whether the danger is real or only imagined. Desire may tell you that something is attractive, but you must ask whether pursuing it strengthens your character or weakens it. The first mistake of an undisciplined person is immediate agreement with every emotion. A feeling appears and the person says, "This is who I am." But a Stoic mind does not surrender so quickly. It observes, it investigates, it separates the feeling from the decision. You can experience anger without becoming an angry person. You can experience sadness without allowing sadness to govern your actions. You can experience fear without allowing fear to decide your path. The presence of an emotion does not remove your duty to think clearly. Your emotions become destructive when they become the foundation of your choices. A person who acts only from emotion becomes unpredictable even to himself. One day he promises discipline, the next day he follows comfort. One moment he wants peace, the next moment he creates conflict because pride has taken control. One moment he claims to value wisdom, the next moment he sacrifices it for a temporary feeling. This inconsistency is the result of allowing every internal movement to become an external action. The practice is simple but demanding. Create a pause. Before responding, examine. Before speaking, consider. Before acting, question. Not because you are afraid to act, but because you respect the importance of your choices. A single uncontrolled reaction can damage a relationship, destroy trust, or create regret that lasts longer than the emotion that caused it. A moment of discipline can prevent years of correction. Each morning, prepare your mind before the world tests it. Do not begin the day as a person waiting to react. Begin as a person who has already decided how to conduct himself. Remind yourself that people may be careless with their words, plans may fail, delays may appear, unexpected difficulties may arrive. These things are not personal attacks against you, they are parts of existence. Your responsibility is not to eliminate every challenge. Your responsibility is to meet every challenge with a mind that remains governed by reason. When someone acts unfairly toward you, your first responsibility is not revenge, it is clarity. Ask yourself, what exactly happened? What part belongs to the other person? What part belongs to my interpretation? What action would represent my values? The weak mind immediately searches for a target to blame. The disciplined mind searches for the correct response. One is controlled by the event. The other controls himself within the event. This does not mean accepting wrongdoing without thought. A rational person can correct, confront, and set boundaries, but he does so from judgment, not from uncontrolled emotion. There is a difference between responding to injustice and becoming consumed by anger. One preserves your character, the other damages it. The goal is not to become passive. The goal is to remain master of yourself while dealing with what must be dealt with. You must also learn the difference between what deserves your emotional energy and what does not. Many people waste their inner strength on things that cannot be changed. They replay conversations that are finished. They argue with memories. They seek approval from people who have already decided their opinions. They suffer because they continue fighting battles that exist only inside their minds. The disciplined person asks, "Is this something I can influence through my action? If yes, act. If no, release it." Your attention is limited. Your emotional energy is limited. Spend them carefully. Every time you allow a useless thought to dominate your mind, you take energy away from the things that actually belong to you. You cannot build a strong character while constantly feeding distractions. You cannot develop peace while continuously choosing mental conflict. The mind becomes shaped by what it repeatedly entertains. Practice observing your emotions at the moment they appear. Do not wait until after the damage is done. When irritation rises, notice it early. When jealousy appears, examine it early. When the need to prove yourself appears, question it early. The earlier you recognize an emotion, the less power it has. A small spark can be controlled. A fire that has been fed for hours becomes harder to stop. The evening is where honesty must return. Review your day without excuses. Where did emotion control you? Where did you speak because you wanted to release anger rather than communicate truth? Where did you seek validation instead of acting from principle? Where did you complain about something outside your control? Where did you fail to practice patience, courage, fairness, or self-control? The purpose of this examination is not punishment. It is training. You cannot improve what you refuse to see. A person who never examines himself remains a stranger to his own mind. He repeats the same patterns and calls them personality. He repeats the same reactions and calls them honesty. He repeats the same weaknesses and calls them human nature. But a rational being is not meant to simply repeat. He is meant to improve through awareness and discipline. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are part of being human. The mistake is not having emotions. The mistake is allowing them to sit on the throne of judgment. They are visitors. They are experiences passing through your awareness. They should be understood, guided, and placed in their proper position. Reason must remain the guide because reason is what allows you to choose actions that align with your principles rather than your temporary state. When you transform your relationship with emotion, you transform your entire life. Conversations change because you stop reacting to every word. Relationships change because you stop demanding others manage your feelings. Work changes because setbacks no longer destroy your focus. Your own mind changes because you begin to trust yourself, not because you always feel calm, but because you know you can remain steady even when you do not. The strongest person is not the person who never feels anger, fear, or sadness. The strongest person is the one who can feel these things and still choose correctly. Anyone can act well when circumstances are easy. The true test is what happens when your patience is challenged, when your pride is touched, when your desires are denied, when things do not happen according to your expectations. This is where your character is revealed, not in comfort, but in disturbance, not when everything follows your plan, but when the plan changes, not when people praise you, but when they misunderstand you. The disciplined person does not need perfect conditions to remain honorable. He carries his principles with him. Begin today by taking ownership of your inner world. Stop saying, "They made me angry." Ask instead, "What judgment did I create that allowed anger to take control?" Stop saying, "This ruined my day." Ask, "Why did I give this event permission to control my entire mind?" Stop saying, "I cannot help how I feel." Ask, "How can I train my response to what I feel?" These questions return power to where it belongs. They move you away from helpless reaction and toward deliberate action. They remind you that your greatest responsibility is not controlling life outside yourself. It is governing the person who meets that life. A week of this practice can reveal how much of your suffering came not from events, but from your uncontrolled interpretations of them. You will begin noticing the space between feeling and action. You will begin choosing words instead of releasing impulses. You will begin responding instead of exploding. You will begin living from principle instead of mood. The world does not need you to become emotionless. It requires you to become responsible. Your emotions are part of you, but they are not the whole of you. Beneath every emotion is the ability to examine, to choose, and to act with wisdom. That ability is where your strength is found. Do not waste another day being a prisoner of reactions you never questioned. Do not allow temporary feelings to make permanent decisions. Do not hand control of your life to every passing emotion. Train the mind. Examine the judgment. Choose the response. Return to reason. This is the path of inner transformation. Not escaping emotion, but mastering your relationship with it. Not becoming someone who feels nothing, but becoming someone who is no longer controlled by everything he feels. When your inner world comes under discipline, your outer life begins to change because you are no longer meeting life as a victim of circumstance. You are meeting it as a person who governs himself. Number 3. Practice silence and inner strength. You live in a world that constantly demands your attention, but you rarely ask whether everything demanding your attention deserves it. Every sound, every opinion, every message, every piece of information competes for control over your mind. Many people believe they are free because they can choose what to watch, what to say, and what to follow, but their attention is constantly being pulled by things they never examined. They move from one distraction to another, from one reaction to another, without ever sitting quietly enough to discover what is happening inside themselves. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the condition where the mind can finally observe itself without interruption. It is the place where you notice the thoughts you usually escape from, the desires you usually obey, and the judgments you usually accept without question. A person who cannot remain alone with his own thoughts is not in control of his inner life. He depends on constant stimulation because stillness reveals what he has avoided. The undisciplined mind fears silence because silence removes the excuses. When there is no noise, there is no distraction from your own habits. You begin to see where you seek approval, where you exaggerate problems, where you complain about things outside your control, where you avoid responsibilities that belong to you. Silence becomes a mirror. It does not flatter you. It shows you exactly what you have been carrying. Many people speak too much because they are trying to convince others, but often they are also trying to convince themselves. They explain, defend, justify, and seek agreement because they have not developed confidence in their own judgment. A disciplined person does not need every thought to be heard. He understands that not every opinion requires a response, not every criticism requires a defense, and not every misunderstanding requires correction. The strength of a person is often revealed by what he does when he has the opportunity to react, but chooses not to. Silence can be an act of wisdom when it comes from self-control. It is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is the refusal to give your energy to what does not deserve it. A person who is controlled by the need to answer everything is controlled by others. A person who can remain silent when reason demands silence has authority over himself. The first practice is simple. Create moments where you are not consuming anything. No opinions from others, no unnecessary conversations, no endless information entering your mind. Sit with yourself. Observe what appears. Do not immediately judge it. Do not immediately chase it. Let the mind reveal its patterns. You cannot govern what you refuse to observe. When you sit in silence, you will notice how quickly the mind searches for escape. It will bring memories, worries, desires, plans, and distractions. It will tell you that you need to do something else. This is the moment of training. Do not fight the thought with frustration. Observe it. Return to awareness. Return to the present moment. Each return is a strengthening of your ability to remain steady. A person with inner strength does not need the world to constantly confirm his existence. He does not measure himself by how much attention he receives. He does not become elevated by praise or destroyed by criticism. He understands that the value of his character is not created by public opinion. It is created by the quality of his choices. The desire to be seen is one of the strongest disturbances of the mind. It causes people to act differently depending on who is watching. They become one person in private and another in public. They perform goodness when it is rewarded and abandon it when nobody notices. But the disciplined person understands that character is proven most clearly when there is no audience. Ask yourself honestly, who are you when nobody is watching? How do you speak to yourself when no one can hear? What habits do you allow because they remain hidden? What weaknesses do you excuse because nobody challenges you? These questions are uncomfortable because they remove the image you present to the world and reveal the person you are training yourself to become. The purpose of silence is not to escape life. It is to prepare yourself to meet life correctly. A person who never becomes quiet cannot clearly identify his own motives. He may believe he is acting from wisdom when he is actually acting from fear. He may believe he is protecting his peace when he is actually avoiding necessary difficulty. He may believe he is being honest when he is simply releasing uncontrolled emotion. The mind requires examination. Every judgment must be questioned before it becomes a belief. When you think someone disrespected you, examine the thought. Did the person truly attack your character, or did your pride feel threatened? When you think you have failed, examine the thought. Did you actually fail, or did you simply experience an outcome you disliked? When you think you need something, examine the thought. Is it necessary for a good life, or is it only a desire demanding attention? Silence gives you the space to ask these questions. Without that space, you live according to the first impression. You become a person who reacts to appearances instead of understanding reality. The mind becomes like an unguarded door where anything can enter and claim authority. Discipline means standing at that door. You must also learn the strength of speaking less and observing more. Many people reveal their lack of control through unnecessary words. They speak when angry and later regret it. They reveal plans before they have acted. They criticize others to feel superior. They complain because complaint feels easier than improvement. Words reveal the condition of the mind behind them. This does not mean you should avoid communication or become distant from others. Human beings live among others, and justice requires proper relationships. But your speech should come from intention, not impulse. Before speaking, ask, is this true? Is this necessary? Does this represent the person I am trying to become? A disciplined tongue is evidence of a disciplined mind. There is also a silence that must exist after disappointment. When something does not happen as you hoped, the mind immediately wants to create a story. It wants to declare that life is unfair, that everything is against you, that the situation proves something negative about your future. Do not accept these judgments without examination. An event has occurred. Your task is to meet it with reason. What belongs to you is your response. What does not belong to you is the outcome. You can prepare, work, act with integrity and make wise decisions, but you cannot command every result. The person who understands this does not become careless. He becomes focused. He puts his effort where it has power and releases anxiety where it has none. Inner strength grows when you stop fighting imaginary battles. Many people are exhausted not from what happens, but from the constant arguments they create inside their own minds. They replay conversations, they imagine future conflicts, they seek approval from people who may never give it. They carry burdens created by their own judgments. Silence allows these burdens to be examined and removed. It teaches you that not every thought deserves a place in your life. Some thoughts are simply habits of an untrained mind. They appear because they have appeared many times before. But repetition does not make a thought true. A belief must be tested by reason. Begin each morning with a period of quiet reflection. Before the demands of the day begin, remind yourself that you will encounter things you cannot control. People will have their opinions. Circumstances will change. Plans will be interrupted. Your emotions will rise and fall. But your duty remains the same, to act with wisdom, fairness, courage, and self-control. During the day, practice returning to silence before important decisions. Do not allow urgency to steal your judgment. The world often rewards speed, but wisdom requires examination. A rushed mind is easily controlled. A calm mind can see clearly. At night, review your relationship with silence. Did you spend the day escaping yourself? Did you allow distractions to control your attention? Did you speak because you had something valuable to say or because you wanted to be noticed? Did you react because you chose to or because a feeling demanded it? This examination is where growth happens. A person who practices silence begins to discover a different kind of confidence. It is not the confidence of someone who believes he is superior. It is the confidence of someone who knows he can face himself honestly. He does not need to run from mistakes because he knows mistakes can be corrected. He does not need to defend every action because he knows his character is built by consistency, not by appearances. The strongest mind is not the one that controls every external situation. It is the one that remains steady when external situations cannot be controlled. It is the mind that can sit with uncertainty without creating unnecessary suffering. It is the mind that can experience difficulty without abandoning reason. You do not become powerful by making the world quieter. You become powerful by making your own mind quieter. A noisy mind is easily disturbed. A disciplined mind can remain firm even when surrounded by confusion. The practice of silence is the practice of returning to yourself. It is remembering that your worth does not depend on constant recognition. It is remembering that your peace does not require every person to agree with you. It is remembering that your purpose is not to win every argument, but to live according to reason. Do not fear the quiet moments. They are where your character is revealed. They are where you discover what controls you and where you reclaim control. Every moment spent observing yourself honestly is a moment spent becoming more deliberate. The world will continue to demand your attention. People will continue to speak. Events will continue to change. But you do not have to give everything access to your mind. You can choose what deserves your judgment. You can choose what deserves your energy. You can choose to remain composed. Silence is not emptiness. It is discipline. It is the training ground where the mind learns to govern itself. And when the mind learns to govern itself, a person becomes difficult to disturb because his strength no longer depends on the outside world remaining peaceful. His strength comes from the order he has created within. Number 4. Detach from external approval completely. You have spent more time trying to be accepted than trying to become worthy of your own respect. You have measured your actions by the reactions of others. You have changed your words because you feared disagreement. You have hidden parts of yourself because you feared rejection. You have felt peace when people approved of you and lost peace when they did not. But ask yourself honestly, if your stability depends on the opinions of others, who is actually in control of your life? A person who needs constant approval has given away authority over his own mind. He allows strangers, friends, family, and society to decide whether he feels valuable. He wakes up seeking confirmation and goes to sleep reviewing whether he was accepted. His attention is not directed toward living correctly, it is directed toward managing an image. This is a form of attachment that creates unnecessary suffering. You cannot command another person's thoughts. You cannot force someone to understand you. You cannot guarantee that your efforts will be recognized. You cannot make every person see your intentions clearly. These things are outside your complete control. Yet many people build their entire emotional life around trying to control them. The disciplined mind begins by recognizing a simple truth. Your character belongs to you, but other people's opinions belong to them. Their judgments are created through their own experiences, beliefs, limitations, and perspectives. You may influence them through your actions, but you cannot own their thoughts. When you attempt to own what belongs to another person, you create a conflict that cannot be won. The desire for approval becomes dangerous when it causes you to betray your own principles. A person may abandon honesty because he wants acceptance. He may avoid necessary conversations because he wants to remain liked. He may pretend to agree because he fears being rejected. Slowly, he stops living according to reason and begins living according to the expectations of others. A life built on approval is unstable because approval changes constantly. Today, people may praise you. Tomorrow, they may criticize you. Today, they may celebrate your choices. Tomorrow, they may question them. If your peace rises and falls with these movements, you have placed your inner condition into the hands of circumstances you cannot govern. The Stoic path is not to become someone who ignores all feedback. Wisdom listens, wisdom learns, wisdom corrects itself when truth is revealed. The mistake is not caring about others' opinions. The mistake is allowing opinions to become the measure of your worth and the director of your actions. A rational person considers advice, but he does not surrender judgment. Begin your day by remembering where your responsibility ends. You are responsible for your intentions, your effort, your discipline, your honesty, and your choices. You are not responsible for every reaction those choices create in others. You are responsible for acting well, not for controlling every interpretation of your actions. This understanding changes relationships. You no longer approach people asking, "How can I make them approve of me?" You begin asking, "How can I act with fairness, respect, and integrity?" The first question creates dependence. The second creates character. Many people are exhausted because they are constantly performing. They present a version of themselves designed to receive approval. They carefully manage appearances but neglect the condition of their inner life. They want to look successful, wise, strong, and disciplined without doing the difficult work of becoming those things. The disciplined person reverses this. He focuses on becoming good before appearing good. He understands that reputation is an external possession, but character is an internal achievement. Reputation can be damaged by false accusations. Character can remain intact when it is built on virtue. One depends on the world, the other depends on your choices. Ask yourself, what would you do if nobody praised you? What habits would you maintain if nobody noticed? What responsibilities would you fulfill if no one rewarded you? These questions reveal whether your actions come from principle or performance. A person governed by approval is constantly negotiating with fear. fear of being disliked, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being excluded, fear of appearing unsuccessful. But fear becomes weaker when you stop treating these outcomes as disasters. Being disliked is uncomfortable, but it is not the destruction of your character. Being misunderstood is unpleasant, but it does not remove your duty to act correctly. Losing approval is painful, but losing your integrity is far worse. The true loss is not that someone thinks poorly of you. The true loss is when you begin thinking poorly of yourself because you abandoned what you knew was right. External rejection can be endured. Internal betrayal damages the foundation of your life. Practice separating appearance from reality. A person criticizing you does not automatically mean you are wrong. A person praising you does not automatically mean you are right. Both praise and criticism are information to examine, not commands to obey. The rational mind receives them without becoming controlled by them. Throughout the day, notice the moments where approval controls you. Notice when you want to speak only because you want recognition. Notice when you avoid action because you fear judgment. Notice when you compare your life to others because you want proof that you are enough. These moments are opportunities for training. When the desire for approval appears, ask yourself, what am I seeking right now? Am I seeking truth, or am I seeking comfort? Am I trying to improve, or am I trying to protect my image? Am I acting from virtue, or am I acting from fear? These questions expose the hidden motives that often control behavior. A person may believe he is being humble when he is actually seeking praise for appearing humble. He may believe he is being generous when he is actually seeking appreciation. He may believe he is helping others when he is actually seeking to feel needed. The disciplined mind examines even its own good actions. This is why self-examination must be honest. You cannot build inner strength while constantly protecting your illusions. If you want freedom from approval, you must first admit how deeply you have depended on it. You must see the moments where you changed yourself to be accepted. You must recognize the times you allowed other people's reactions to determine your mood. Do not judge yourself with useless shame. Use awareness as a tool for correction. The purpose of seeing weakness is not to become trapped in guilt. The purpose is to remove what prevents you from living according to reason. Create a morning practice where you remind yourself, today I may be praised and I may be criticized. Neither will define me. Today people may understand me and they may misunderstand me. Neither changes my responsibility. Today I will focus on the quality of my actions, not the opinions they create. This preparation protects the mind from unnecessary disturbance. It allows you to enter the world without begging the world to validate you. You become more sincere because you no longer need every action to produce a certain reaction. Silence becomes easier when you stop trying to prove yourself. You no longer need to explain every decision. You no longer need to win every disagreement. You no longer need to convince everyone of your value. Your life becomes quieter because you stop carrying the burden of managing other people's perceptions. The person who depends less on approval becomes more capable of genuine relationships. He can care for others without needing constant reassurance. He can give without demanding recognition. He can listen without preparing a defense. He can admit mistakes without feeling that his entire identity has been attacked. This is because his foundation has moved inward. He no longer asks the world to tell him who he is. He knows that identity is shaped by action. Every honest choice strengthens him. Every act of self-control strengthens him. Every moment of courage strengthens him. At night, examine where approval influenced you. Did you act differently to impress someone? Did you avoid something because of fear of judgment? Did you allow someone's reaction to disturb your peace? Did you sacrifice your values for acceptance? Do not hide these answers. They are the exact places where growth is needed. The person who cannot face these questions remains controlled by invisible chains. The person who faces them begins removing those chains one by one. You do not need everyone to understand your path. You need to understand whether your path is aligned with reason and virtue. You do not need everyone to approve of you. You need to ensure that your own actions are worthy of approval from your conscience. You do not need the world to confirm your strength. You need to practice strength until it becomes part of your character. A life without dependence on external approval is not a life without connection. It is a life where connection is no longer built on fear. You can love people without needing them to complete your identity. You can respect others without surrendering your judgment. You can value relationships without making them the foundation of your peace. The person who detaches from approval gains something greater than popularity. He gains stability. He gains the ability to stand calmly when opinions change. He gains the freedom to act according to principle, even when recognition does not arrive. The world will always have opinions. People will always interpret, judge, compare, and react. That is their part. Your part is different. Your part is to govern your choices. Your part is to protect your character. Your part is to live according to what is right, whether the world notices or not. When you stop chasing approval, you stop living as a performer and begin living as a person. You no longer waste your days trying to control what was never yours. You return your attention to the only place where real transformation happens, your own judgment, your own actions, and your own character. This is where inner freedom begins, not when everyone accepts you, but when you no longer require acceptance to remain true. Number 5. Build unbreakable Stoic mentality. A strong mind is not created when life becomes easy. It is created when the mind learns to remain steady while life continues to challenge it. Many people spend their days searching for conditions that will finally allow them to become disciplined, patient, and focused. They believe they need fewer problems, fewer obstacles, fewer disappointments. But this belief keeps them weak because it teaches them to depend on circumstances before they develop themselves. The untrained mind says, "I will become calm when everything goes my way." The disciplined mind says, "I will become calm because I choose my response regardless of what happens." The difference between these two ways of living is the difference between being controlled by life and governing yourself within life. An unbreakable mentality is not built by avoiding difficulty. It is built by meeting difficulty with the correct judgment. The obstacle itself does not determine whether you become stronger or weaker. Your response determines what the experience produces in you. The same hardship can destroy one person and strengthen another because the event is not the only factor. The interpretation, the discipline, and the character brought to the situation decide the outcome. You must understand something clearly. Life will not ask permission before testing you. There will be delays, losses, misunderstandings, failures, and moments when your patience is challenged. If your strength depends on everything being predictable, then your strength is fragile. A person who is only calm when comfortable has not developed peace. He has only experienced favorable conditions. The Stoic mentality begins with accepting reality without resistance. Acceptance does not mean approval of everything that happens. It means seeing clearly what has already happened instead of wasting your energy fighting the fact that it happened. The past cannot be rewritten. The moment cannot be reversed. The only question that remains is what kind of person you will be now. Many people suffer twice. First from the event itself, then from their refusal to accept that the event has occurred. They add anger to difficulty, resentment to loss, and fear to uncertainty. They carry the weight of what happened and the extra weight of their judgment about what happened. The disciplined mind removes the unnecessary burden. It asks, "What is required of me now?" Your mentality becomes unbreakable when you stop negotiating with reality. Reality does not need your agreement to exist. A situation does not become different because you complain about it. A person does not become different because you wish they were different. Time does not move backward because you regret the past. Wisdom begins when you stop demanding that life follow your preferred design and start focusing on how you can act with excellence within the design that exists. The first training of a strong mind is the separation between what belongs to you and what does not. Your effort belongs to you. Your preparation belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your attitude belongs to you. But the final result, another person's decision, the timing of events, and the changing conditions of life do not fully belong to you. When you confuse these categories, you create unnecessary weakness. You become anxious about things you cannot command and careless about things you can improve. You spend energy trying to control the uncontrollable while neglecting the part of life where your power actually exists. Each morning, remind yourself of this distinction. Before the day begins, prepare your mind for uncertainty. Tell yourself that you will meet situations you did not plan for. You will encounter people who do not act according to your expectations. You will experience moments that challenge your patience, but you will not surrender your judgment because of them. A strong mentality is created through daily preparation, not emergency reaction. The person who waits until difficulty arrives to search for strength has already given difficulty too much power. The person who trains every day enters difficult moments with a prepared mind. You must also train yourself to stop seeing discomfort as an enemy. Discomfort is often where discipline is built. The moment when you want to quit is the moment where you discover whether your actions are controlled by principle or by temporary feeling. A person who always follows comfort becomes dependent on comfort. A person who practices endurance becomes capable of remaining steady when comfort disappears. This does not mean seeking unnecessary hardship. It means refusing to become fragile. It means allowing yourself to experience small challenges without immediately escaping. It means choosing responsibility even when laziness feels easier. It means completing what you said you would do even when motivation is absent. Your character is revealed through repetition. A single moment of courage does not create a courageous person. A single act of patience does not create a patient person. Your identity is shaped by the actions you repeatedly choose. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen the part of yourself that can govern your life. The mind becomes powerful when it learns not to exaggerate. Many difficulties appear larger because the mind adds unnecessary stories. A mistake becomes "I always fail." A rejection becomes "I am not valued." A setback becomes "Everything is against me." These judgments are not facts. They are interpretations, and interpretations can be examined. Before accepting a thought, question it. Is this true? Is this useful? Is this leading me toward a better action? Or is this only increasing disturbance? A disciplined mind does not believe everything it produces. It evaluates its own thoughts. This practice requires honesty because many people are attached to their own suffering. They repeat the same complaints because the complaints have become familiar. They hold on to anger because anger gives them a feeling of control. They blame because blame protects them from responsibility. But these habits do not create strength. They only preserve weakness. A strong mentality requires ownership. Not ownership of everything that happens, but ownership of how you meet what happens. The moment you stop searching for someone or something to blame, you begin developing real power. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is the correct response from me?" This question changes everything. It moves you from helplessness into responsibility. It forces you to look at your own character rather than only at external circumstances. It reminds you that even when you cannot choose the situation, you can choose the quality of your response. Relationships reveal the strength of your mentality. A weak mind needs others to behave correctly before it can remain peaceful. A strong mind can maintain fairness even when others are difficult. It does not allow another person's lack of discipline to destroy its own discipline. It does not allow another person's anger to become its own anger. This does not mean allowing others to treat you without limits. A rational person can correct wrong behavior. He can remove himself from harmful situations. He can speak honestly. But he does these things from judgment, not uncontrolled emotion. His actions come from principles, not from being pulled around by another person's behavior. You also need to train yourself to handle success correctly. Many people believe hardship is the only test, but success reveals character as well. Praise can make a person arrogant. Comfort can make a person lazy. Achievement can make a person forget the discipline that created it. A strong mind remains balanced in both difficulty and success. Do not let favorable conditions make you careless. Continue practicing discipline when life is going well. Continue examining yourself when things are comfortable. Continue improving when others recognize your efforts. The person who stops training because he feels secure becomes vulnerable again. At the end of each day, examine your mentality. Where did you lose control of yourself? Where did you allow emotion to replace reason? Where did you avoid responsibility? Where did you choose comfort over character? Then also ask where you acted well. Where did you remain patient? Where did you choose wisdom? Where did you control yourself? This examination is not about judging yourself harshly. It is about refusing to live unconsciously. A person who reviews his actions daily becomes aware of his direction. A person who avoids self-examination can spend years repeating the same mistakes while believing he is changing. An unbreakable mentality is not created through pretending nothing affects you. It is created through understanding that external events do not have the authority to define your inner state. You can experience difficulty and remain honorable. You can face uncertainty and remain thoughtful. You can encounter failure and continue improving. The world will continue changing. People will continue having different opinions. Plans will continue being interrupted. Life will continue presenting situations beyond your control. Your task is not to defeat reality. Your task is to meet reality with a mind that has been trained. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to become disciplined. The moment to train is the moment you are living. Your next decision is the place where your character is built. Your next response is the place where your mentality becomes stronger or weaker. A person with a strong Stoic mentality does not need to announce his strength. It appears in his patience. It appears in his restraint. It appears in his ability to remain focused when others become distracted. It appears in his ability to continue doing what is right when no reward is guaranteed. Build your mind through small acts of self-government. Choose reason when emotion demands control. Choose responsibility when blame feels easier. Choose patience when frustration appears. Choose discipline when comfort calls. The goal is not to become someone who never faces difficulty. The goal is to become someone who difficulty cannot easily move away from his principles. When your mind is trained, your circumstances lose their power over your character. You become steady not because life is predictable, but because you are prepared. You become stronger not because you avoid challenges, but because you use them to practice the qualities that make a human being honorable. This is the foundation of an unbreakable mentality, a mind that belongs to reason, a character built through discipline, and a life guided by virtue rather than circumstance. Number 6. Replace weak habits with virtue. Your life is not shaped by what you intend to do. It is shaped by what you repeatedly do. A person can have noble goals, strong desires, and sincere intentions, but if his daily actions are controlled by weak habits, his life will follow those habits. The mind does not become disciplined through wishes. It becomes disciplined through practice. Many people look at their struggles and blame circumstances, but they rarely examine the patterns they repeat every day. They ask why they lack progress while continuing the same behaviors that prevent progress. They ask why they feel restless while feeding distractions. They ask why they lack confidence while repeatedly avoiding responsibility. They ask why they feel powerless while constantly surrendering control to impulses. A habit is not merely an action repeated, it is a judgment repeated. Every habit begins with a decision about what matters. When you choose comfort over duty, you are teaching your mind that comfort has greater value. When you choose anger over patience, you are teaching your mind that emotion is more important than reason. When you choose distraction over reflection, you are teaching your mind to escape rather than examine. The path of transformation begins when you stop looking only at the visible behavior and start examining the judgment behind it. The action is the result. The belief is the root. If you want to change what you repeatedly do, you must change what you repeatedly accept as true. Weak habits often survive because they provide immediate satisfaction while creating long-term weakness. The undisciplined mind is attracted to what feels good now and ignores what damages character later. It chooses ease instead of effort, reaction instead of thought, pleasure instead of responsibility. But a rational life is not measured by what feels comfortable in the moment. It is measured by whether your choices reflect wisdom. Virtue begins when you stop asking, "What do I feel like doing?" and start asking, "What is the right thing to do?" These questions lead to different lives. The first follows impulse. The second follows reason. You must understand that every day you are training yourself. There is no moment where your character is not being shaped. When you delay a responsibility, you practice avoidance. When you complain instead of acting, you practice helplessness. When you blame others instead of examining yourself, you practice dishonesty. When you control yourself despite difficulty, you practice strength. The good news is that the same process works in the opposite direction. A person can replace weakness with discipline through repeated choices. The mind that learned impatience can learn patience. The mind that learned distraction can learn attention. The mind that learned excuses can learn responsibility, but this requires a willingness to stop protecting old patterns. Many people want a better life while defending the habits that keep them where they are. They want peace while feeding conflict. They want confidence while avoiding challenges. They want respect while failing to respect their own commitments. This contradiction must end. You cannot build a strong character while constantly making agreements with your weaker impulses. Begin your morning with a clear examination of what kind of person you intend to be. Do not begin by asking what you want to receive from the day. Begin by asking what you will contribute through your actions. Will you be patient when challenged? Will you remain honest when it is inconvenient? Will you complete your duties even when motivation is absent? Will you govern your desires instead of being governed by them? The morning is where direction is chosen. If you enter the day without awareness, your old habits will choose for you. They will pull you toward familiar reactions. They will repeat yesterday's patterns. They will convince you that change is too difficult because they are comfortable with remaining the same. A disciplined person does not wait for perfect motivation. He acts according to principle. Feelings change, circumstances change, energy changes, but a commitment to virtue can remain stable. This is why character is stronger than emotion. Emotion depends on conditions. Virtue depends on choice. You must also learn to remove the excuses that protect weakness. The mind is skilled at creating explanations that make surrender appear reasonable. It says, "I will start tomorrow." It says, "This is just who I am." It says, "The circumstances are not right." It says, "I deserve this comfort." These thoughts may feel convincing, but they must be examined. Ask yourself, is this thought leading me toward improvement or preserving my current weakness? Is this a true limitation or an excuse created to avoid discomfort? Is this action building the person I want to become, or strengthening the person I am trying to leave behind? This examination is not an attack on yourself. It is an act of respect toward your own potential for reason and growth. A person who refuses to challenge himself remains controlled by whatever habit has the strongest voice. A person who questions himself begins to regain command. The replacement of weak habits requires patience because habits are strengthened through repetition and weakened through repetition. Do not expect one decision to erase years of conditioning. Do not become discouraged when old patterns appear. Your responsibility is not to be flawless. Your responsibility is to continue choosing correctly. Each time you refuse an unnecessary impulse, you create evidence that you are capable of self-control. Each time you complete a difficult task, you create evidence that discipline is possible. Each time you pause before acting, you create evidence that reason can guide you. Small choices reveal the direction of the soul. People often wait for a major moment to prove their character. But character is built in ordinary moments. It is built when you decide whether to keep a promise to yourself. It is built when you choose what is necessary over what is easy. It is built when nobody rewards you for doing what is right. You must be careful with what you repeatedly allow. What you tolerate becomes familiar. What becomes familiar begins to feel normal. What feels normal becomes part of your identity. This is why you must examine your habits before they become your nature. Do not allow laziness to become your identity. Do not allow resentment to become your identity. Do not allow fear to become your identity. These are patterns, not permanent definitions, but patterns only change when they are confronted. The Stoic approach is not to hate yourself for weakness. It is to recognize weakness clearly and train against it. A person does not become better by pretending his flaws do not exist. He becomes better by bringing them into awareness and choosing differently. During the day, practice interrupting automatic behavior. Before reaching for distraction, ask whether it serves your purpose. Before speaking, ask whether your words reflect wisdom. Before giving in to desire, ask whether you are choosing freely or simply obeying an impulse. This pause is where transformation happens. The space between temptation and action is where character is formed. Without that space, you repeat the past. With that space, you create a different future. You must also understand that virtue is not an idea to admire. It is a way of living. Wisdom is shown through decisions. Courage is shown through action. Justice is shown through how you treat others. Self-control is shown through what you refuse to be controlled by. A person who replaces weak habits with virtue does not become someone without struggles. He becomes someone who uses struggles as opportunities to practice what matters. Difficulty becomes a place where patience is trained. Temptation becomes a place where discipline is trained. Failure becomes a place where humility is trained. At the end of each day, examine your actions. Do not ask only whether you succeeded. Ask what you practiced. Did you practice discipline or avoidance? Did you practice honesty or self-deception? Did you practice patience or impatience? Did you act from reason or from impulse? The purpose of this review is correction. Tomorrow is shaped by what you learn today. A person who examines his mistakes becomes wiser. A person who ignores them repeats them. The transformation you seek is not created by one dramatic moment. It is created through ordinary decisions made with awareness. Your future self is being built by what you repeatedly choose now. Remove what weakens you. Strengthen what improves you. Replace careless actions with deliberate ones. Replace excuses with responsibility. Replace impulsive reactions with thoughtful choices. You do not need to become a different person overnight. You need to stop reinforcing the habits that keep you from becoming the person you are capable of being. Every action is a vote for the kind of character you are creating. Choose carefully, not because someone is watching, not because you want recognition. Choose because living according to reason and virtue is the highest responsibility of a human being. When your habits begin to reflect wisdom, your life begins to reflect order. When your choices become disciplined, your mind becomes clearer. When your actions become aligned with virtue, you stop being controlled by weakness and begin living with purpose. The change begins with the next choice, the next moment, the next opportunity to act according to what is right rather than what is easy. This is how a person rebuilds himself from within, not through promises, but through practice, not through desire, but through disciplined action. Number 7. Focus only what you control. You waste a great portion of your life fighting things that were never placed under your command. You spend energy trying to change people's opinions, control uncertain outcomes, rewrite the past, and force circumstances to match your expectations. Then you wonder why your mind feels exhausted. The burden is not only what happens to you, the burden is the constant attempt to control what was never yours to control. A disciplined mind begins by recognizing the boundary between what belongs to you and what does not. This boundary is one of the most important distinctions you can make because it determines where your energy goes. Your choices belong to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your judgment belongs to you. Your actions belong to you. But the reaction of another person, the final result of every effort, the movement of events, and the opinions of others do not fully belong to you. When you fail to recognize this difference, you create unnecessary suffering. You become disturbed by things that cannot answer to your will. You become frustrated because reality refuses to obey your demands. You spend your days trying to negotiate with things that do not listen. The result is a mind constantly in conflict with existence itself. The problem is not that you care. The problem is that you attach your peace to things outside your authority. You allow external events to decide whether you are calm or disturbed. You allow another person's behavior to determine your mood. You allow a result to determine whether your effort had value. You allow circumstances to decide whether you will act with dignity. This is a form of surrender. Not surrender to reality, but surrender to everything outside yourself. You hand over control of your inner state to forces you cannot command. A person who lives this way is always waiting for the world to become acceptable before he allows himself to be steady. But the world will not become perfectly arranged for your comfort. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be people who disagree. There will always be situations where effort does not create the result you wanted. There will always be moments where life moves differently than your plans. The wise person does not build peace on the condition that everything goes according to plan. He builds peace on the ability to respond correctly when plans change. This does not mean becoming careless about results. A disciplined person still works. He still prepares. He still acts with intention. But he understands that his responsibility ends where control ends. He gives full attention to his actions and accepts that the final outcome belongs partly to forces beyond him. Consider your daily life. You prepare for a conversation, but you cannot control how the other person receives your words. You work toward a goal, but you cannot command every circumstance around that goal. You treat others with fairness, but you cannot force them to treat you the same way. You can offer your best effort, but you cannot own the entire chain of events. The mind becomes stronger when it stops demanding ownership over things it cannot possess. Begin your morning by identifying what is truly yours today. Your attitude is yours. Your discipline is yours. Your honesty is yours. Your attention is yours. Your willingness to act correctly is yours. These are the areas where your power exists. Do not waste the first moments of the day worrying about things that have not happened or things you cannot influence. A person who focuses only on what he controls becomes more effective because he stops scattering his strength. He no longer spends hours imagining conversations he cannot control. He no longer creates anxiety about outcomes that have not arrived. He no longer allows uncertainty to steal the present moment. The present moment is where your responsibility exists. The past is complete. The future has not yet arrived. Your only place to act is here. Yet many people abandon the present by living mentally in situations they cannot change or situations that have not occurred. You must learn to bring the mind back. When you notice yourself worrying, ask, is there an action I can take right now? If there is, take it. If there is not, release the mental struggle. Worry without action is not preparation. It is suffering added to uncertainty. The same applies to the opinions of others. You cannot force people to understand your intentions. You cannot control every judgment made about you. If you build your identity on being understood by everyone, you will always be unstable. Different people see through different perspectives. Their judgments belong to them. Your responsibility is not to control every opinion. Your responsibility is to live in a way that deserves your own respect. If you acted with honesty, fairness, and wisdom, then you have fulfilled your part. The rest is outside your command. Many people are trapped because they confuse influence with control. You can influence outcomes, but you cannot guarantee them. You can influence people, but you cannot possess their choices. You can influence your future through your actions, but you cannot command every event that shapes it. Understanding this creates humility. It reminds you that you are part of a larger order. You are responsible for your role, not the entire movement of life. The undisciplined mind often says, if this does not happen, I cannot be at peace. This statement reveals dependence. It means you have made your peace conditional. You have decided that something outside yourself must be present before you can be stable. A stronger mind says, I will work for what is good, but I will not destroy myself over what is beyond my control. This is not indifference, it is maturity. Practice this throughout the day. When something unexpected happens, do not immediately ask why reality failed to match your desire. Ask what response is required from you now. When someone disappoints you, do not immediately focus on changing them. Ask what your own principles require. When a result is different than expected, do not immediately judge the entire effort. Examine what can be learned and what can be improved. This way of thinking transforms problems into exercises. Difficulty becomes a place where wisdom is practiced. Delays become opportunities to practice patience. Disagreement becomes an opportunity to practice fairness. Uncertainty becomes an opportunity to practice trust in your own ability to respond. A person who focuses on what he controls does not become passive. He becomes precise. He stops wasting effort on impossible battles and directs that effort toward meaningful action. He understands that complaining about what cannot be changed does not improve the situation. It only weakens the person complaining. Complaint often feels like action because it creates emotional movement, but it rarely creates improvement. The disciplined person replaces complaint with examination. Instead of saying, why is this happening, he asks, what is the correct way to meet this? This question places responsibility back where it belongs. You must also examine your attachment to outcomes. Sometimes you are not suffering because you failed. You are suffering because you demanded a specific result as proof that your effort mattered. But the value of an action is not always determined by the outcome. A person can act with wisdom and still face an unfavorable result. A person can act poorly and still receive a favorable result. Therefore, judge yourself by the quality of your choices. Judge yourself by whether you acted with discipline, courage, and fairness. Results matter, but your character matters more. At night, review your day by asking where you tried to control what was not yours. Where did you worry about another person's judgment? Where did you become angry because reality did not follow your preference? Where did you neglect your own responsibility while focusing on external circumstances? Then ask where you acted within your power. Where did you choose patience? Where did you take responsibility? Where did you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically? This daily examination strengthens awareness. Without awareness, you repeat patterns. With awareness, you can redirect your life. The person who understands control becomes difficult to disturb because he no longer gives every external event permission to govern his mind. He knows what belongs to him and protects it carefully. He knows what does not belong to him and refuses to carry it unnecessarily. You do not need to control everything to live well. You need to govern what is yours. You need to take responsibility for your judgment, your actions, and your character. The world will continue moving outside your command. People will continue making choices you did not expect. Events will continue arriving without permission, but your response remains a place where discipline can exist. Stop spending your life trying to hold what cannot be held. Stop demanding certainty from a world that changes. Stop attaching your peace to things that were never yours. Return your attention to your own conduct. Return your effort to your own choices. Return your mind to the present responsibility before you. This is where freedom begins. Not when you control everything around you, but when you stop allowing everything around you to control you. Number 8. Develop wisdom through daily reflection. Your mind is constantly producing judgments, but you rarely stop to examine them. You experience an event, create an interpretation, and immediately accept that interpretation as reality. A person says something, and you decide what it means. A situation changes, and you decide whether it is good or bad. A difficulty appears, and you decide whether it will break you or teach you. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of the judgments you allow to remain unexamined. Wisdom does not begin when you collect more information. It begins when you learn to examine yourself. A person can know many things and still lack control over his own mind. He can understand the world around him while remaining unaware of the thoughts directing his own actions. Without reflection, knowledge becomes useless because the person carrying it has not learned how to govern himself. Daily reflection is the practice of bringing your own mind into awareness. It is the discipline of looking at your choices, your reactions, and your intentions with honesty. It is refusing to move through life like a machine following old patterns. It is asking yourself whether your actions are coming from reason or from impulse. Most people examine external situations more than they examine themselves. They analyze other people's mistakes. They judge other people's behavior. They search for explanations outside themselves, but they rarely sit with their own thoughts long enough to discover their own weaknesses. They want to understand the world while avoiding the responsibility of understanding themselves. This avoidance creates repeated suffering. A person who never examines himself repeats the same reactions because he never questions their source. He becomes controlled by habits he does not even recognize. He continues choosing the same responses and then wonders why his life produces the same results. Reflection interrupts this cycle. It creates a moment where you can observe yourself before deciding what to do next. It allows you to see the difference between what happened and what you added to what happened. It reveals where your emotions are giving information and where they are creating confusion. The first practice of reflection begins in the morning. Before the demands of the day take your attention, prepare your mind. Do not enter the day without direction. Ask yourself what challenges may appear and what kind of person you want to be when they do. You cannot predict every event, but you can prepare your character. Remind yourself that you will encounter things that test your patience. You will meet people who think differently. You will face moments where your preferences are challenged. The question is not whether these things will happen. The question is whether you will meet them with a disciplined mind. A prepared mind does not wait for emotion to decide its behavior. It chooses principles before pressure arrives. It decides in advance that anger will not control speech, frustration will not control judgment, and disappointment will not remove responsibility. Throughout the day, practice observing your thoughts. Notice the first judgment that appears. When someone interrupts you, what story does your mind create? When something goes wrong, what conclusion do you immediately accept? When you face difficulty, what do you tell yourself about the situation? These moments reveal your training. They show you where your mind is strong and where it is still ruled by automatic reactions. Do not assume that every thought deserves obedience. A thought is an appearance in the mind, not always a command. Wisdom requires examination. Ask whether the thought is accurate, whether it is useful, and whether it leads you toward better action. A person who accepts every thought without questioning becomes a servant of his own impressions. He reacts to appearances rather than reality. He becomes angry because he believes he has been insulted. He becomes anxious because he believes uncertainty means danger. He becomes discouraged because he believes one failure defines his ability. Reflection creates distance between the event and the judgment. In that space, reason becomes possible. You must also examine your motives. Many actions appear correct from the outside but come from uncontrolled desires within. You may help someone because you genuinely want their good or because you want to be seen as a good person. You may work hard because you value excellence or because you fear being judged as unsuccessful. The action may look the same, but the inner cause reveals the condition of the mind. This is why self-examination requires honesty. You cannot improve what you refuse to see. The purpose of reflection is not to create self-criticism without direction. It is to identify where your choices are aligned with reason and where they are controlled by weakness. A person who reflects daily becomes less dependent on external correction. He notices his own mistakes before they become larger problems. He sees patterns before they become permanent habits. He corrects himself because he values improvement more than protecting his pride. Pride often prevents wisdom because it makes people defend their weaknesses. They would rather protect an excuse than accept a truth that requires change. They would rather say circumstances are responsible than admit that their own choices contributed to the situation. Reflection removes this protection. It asks the uncomfortable questions that lead to growth. Where did I avoid responsibility today? Where did I act from emotion instead of reason? Where did I allow desire to control my decision? Where did I fail to treat another person with fairness? These questions are not signs of failure. They are signs of a person taking ownership of his own development. The evening examination is one of the most powerful disciplines because it transforms the day into a lesson. Before resting, review your actions, not to punish yourself, but to learn. Look at the moments where you acted well and understand why. Look at the moments where you fell short and understand what must change. A person who reviews his life regularly does not waste experiences. Every event becomes material for improvement. Every mistake becomes a teacher. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen judgment. Without reflection, people experience life but do not learn from it. They pass through the same situations repeatedly without becoming wiser because they never stop to extract the lesson. The disciplined person asks different questions. Instead of asking only, "Why did this happen?" he asks, "What does this reveal about my character?" Instead of asking, "Why did this person behave this way?" he asks, "How should I respond according to reason?" Instead of asking, "How can I avoid discomfort?" he asks, "What quality can I develop through this experience?" These questions shift the mind from complaint to growth. Wisdom also requires patience with the process of improvement. A person does not become disciplined because he had one moment of clarity. He becomes disciplined because he repeatedly returns to the practice of examination. Every day offers new opportunities to correct direction. Do not measure your progress only by whether you avoided every mistake. Measure it by whether you became more aware. A person who recognizes his weakness is already closer to improvement than a person who believes he has none. The mind is trained through attention. What you repeatedly focus on becomes stronger. If you focus constantly on problems, your mind becomes trained to search for problems. If you focus on blame, your mind becomes trained to find reasons why responsibility belongs elsewhere. If you focus on improvement, your mind begins searching for ways to act better. This is why reflection must be intentional. Your attention is valuable. Do not give it away without examination. Do not allow every external event to occupy your mind equally. Decide what deserves thought and what deserves release. A wise person does not ignore life. He observes it carefully. He does not suppress emotions. He examines them. He does not pretend difficulty does not exist. He meets difficulty with understanding. The goal is not to create a perfect life without challenges. The goal is to create a mind capable of responding to challenges with clarity. Each day is an opportunity to practice wisdom. Each conversation reveals something about your patience. Each difficulty reveals something about your discipline. Each choice reveals something about the person you are becoming. At the end of your life, your character will be the result of countless small decisions. The person you become is created through what you repeatedly choose, what you repeatedly examine, and what you repeatedly correct. Do not allow your days to pass without learning from them. Do not allow mistakes to remain meaningless. Do not allow your thoughts to control you without being questioned. Take time to examine yourself. Look honestly at your judgments, study your reactions, correct your actions, return daily to reason. A person who practices reflection gains something greater than information. He gains awareness. He gains the ability to see himself clearly. He gains the power to choose rather than simply react. This is the foundation of wisdom, a mind that watches itself, corrects itself, and continues moving toward a life guided by virtue. Number 9. Embrace discomfort for personal growth. You avoid discomfort not because it is harmful, but because your mind has learned to treat discomfort as a threat rather than a teacher. You react to inconvenience as if it were an injustice. You experience resistance and immediately interpret it as something wrong. But much of what you call suffering is not caused by external conditions. It is caused by your judgment that discomfort should not exist. A disciplined mind begins by questioning this judgment. Why should growth feel easy? Why should change feel comfortable? Why should strength be built without resistance? Everything that becomes valuable requires effort against difficulty. The mind that avoids discomfort also avoids development, because development is born inside tension, not ease. You have been trained by habit to seek comfort first. You choose what feels familiar. You avoid what feels uncertain. You delay what feels challenging. In doing so, you reinforce a version of yourself that remains unchanged. The avoidance of discomfort does not protect your life. It preserves your limitations. Discomfort is not an enemy of your well-being. It is a signal that you are moving beyond your current condition. Every time you encounter resistance, you are standing at the boundary between what you are and what you could become. Most people step away from that boundary because they mistake pressure for danger. But pressure is often the condition under which character is formed. Without it, nothing is tested. Without testing, nothing is strengthened. A mind that never experiences resistance remains fragile because it has never been required to hold itself steady. The problem is not that discomfort appears. The problem is that you interpret it as something to escape instead of something to understand. You assume that difficulty means something has gone wrong, when in reality difficulty often means you have entered the space where growth is possible. You cannot control whether discomfort enters your life. You will face delays, demands, responsibilities, and situations that challenge your patience. These are not exceptions. They are part of existence. What you can control is how you respond when they appear. You can treat them as interruptions, or you can treat them as training. A person who embraces discomfort does not seek suffering for its own sake. He does not create unnecessary hardship. He simply refuses to let discomfort dictate his behavior. He understands that discipline is not proven in comfort. It is revealed in resistance. Each morning, you should prepare your mind for this reality. Do not begin the day expecting ease. Begin the day expecting challenge, not because life is hostile, but because life is unpredictable. When you prepare for difficulty, you reduce its power to disturb you. When you expect comfort, every challenge becomes a shock. Tell yourself that today you will encounter situations that test your patience. You will meet tasks that require effort. You will face moments where your preference is not met. Your responsibility is not to avoid these moments, but to meet them with reason. The undisciplined mind reacts to discomfort immediately. It resists, complains, or withdraws. It tries to escape the feeling rather than understand the situation. But reaction without examination leads to repeated weakness. Each time you escape discomfort, you train your mind to avoid future growth. A stronger mind introduces a pause between discomfort and response. In that pause, you ask a simple question: is this truly harmful, or is it merely uncomfortable? Many things feel unpleasant but are not damaging. Effort feels unpleasant but builds strength. Responsibility feels heavy but builds reliability. Discipline feels restrictive but creates freedom from impulse. You must learn to distinguish between harm and discomfort. Harm destroys your ability to function according to reason. Discomfort simply challenges your preference. When you confuse the two, you begin avoiding everything that requires effort. When you distinguish them, you begin choosing wisely. A person who embraces discomfort builds resilience through repetition. He does not wait for motivation. He does not wait for perfect conditions. He acts even when resistance appears. He completes what he has decided regardless of temporary feeling. In this way, he becomes less dependent on comfort and more dependent on principle. This transformation does not happen through a single decision. It happens through repeated exposure to challenge without surrender. Every time you remain steady in discomfort, you strengthen your capacity to remain steady again. Every time you avoid it, you weaken that capacity. Examine your daily behavior honestly. Where do you avoid effort because it feels inconvenient? Where do you delay responsibility because it feels heavy? Where do you seek distraction because focus feels difficult? These are the places where discomfort is controlling your choices. You do not need to eliminate discomfort from your life. You need to change your relationship with it. Instead of viewing it as a barrier, view it as training material. Instead of asking how to escape it, ask what it is developing in you. When you feel resistance during a task, do not immediately abandon it. Stay present long enough to observe your reaction. Notice how quickly the mind seeks relief. Notice how it tries to justify avoidance. This awareness is the beginning of mastery. You are not required to obey every impulse to escape difficulty. An impulse is not a command. It is a signal that requires examination. If you obey every impulse, you live as a reaction rather than a choice. If you examine impulses, you begin to live deliberately. Discomfort also reveals your dependence on external conditions. When everything is easy, you may believe you are disciplined, but true discipline appears when conditions are not favorable. If your patience disappears under pressure, then your patience was never strong. It was only untested. This is why voluntary discomfort is a powerful practice. When you choose small challenges intentionally, you train your mind to remain steady when larger challenges arrive without warning. You teach yourself that discomfort is not something to fear, but something to meet with awareness. A person who never practices discomfort becomes easily shaken by life. A person who practices it becomes stable under pressure. Stability is not created by avoiding storms. It is created by learning how to stand within them without losing reason. You must also observe how your thoughts amplify discomfort. Often the situation is manageable, but the mind adds layers of judgment that increase suffering. You say not only this is difficult, but also this should not be happening, and I cannot handle this, and this is unfair. These added judgments are what create distress beyond the situation itself. Remove unnecessary judgments. Focus on what is actually occurring, not what you believe should be occurring. Reality is already present. Fighting it in thought does not change it. It only weakens your capacity to respond. During moments of discomfort, return to the question of control. What part of this situation belongs to you? Your response belongs to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your attitude belongs to you. Everything else does not fully belong to you. When you focus only on what is yours, the situation becomes clearer and less overwhelming. At the end of the day, reflect on how you handled discomfort. Where did you resist unnecessarily? Where did you avoid responsibility? Where did you remain steady despite difficulty? This reflection trains awareness so that tomorrow you recognize the same patterns earlier. Do not judge yourself with unnecessary harshness. Observe with honesty. Correction comes from clarity, not from self-punishment. The goal is not to feel guilt about discomfort. The goal is to become someone who meets it with understanding. A life without discomfort is not a life of strength. It is a life without growth. Strength is built through the repeated decision to remain present when leaving would feel easier. It is built through choosing action over avoidance. It is built through accepting that discomfort is part of the process of becoming capable. If you continue avoiding discomfort, you will remain the same version of yourself, repeatedly limited by the same reactions. If you begin meeting it directly, you will slowly become someone who is not controlled by temporary feeling. The path is simple but not easy. Each moment of resistance is an opportunity to choose discipline. Each challenge is an opportunity to strengthen reason. Each uncomfortable situation is an invitation to develop character. Stop interpreting discomfort as a sign to retreat. Start recognizing it as a sign that you are being given the chance to grow into something stronger than your current habits allow. This is how transformation begins, not by eliminating difficulty, but by changing the way you stand within it. Number 10. Become unrecognizable through Stoic practice. You want to become unrecognizable, yet you continue to repeat the same inner patterns that created the version of you that exists today. Nothing changes externally until something changes internally. The outer life is only a reflection of repeated judgments, repeated reactions, and repeated choices. If those remain the same, transformation is impossible, no matter how strongly you wish for it. To become unrecognizable, you must first stop trusting the version of yourself that reacts automatically. That version of you speaks before examining, judges before understanding, and acts before reflecting. It is shaped by habit, not by reason. It is not your true authority. It is only your conditioning speaking through repetition. A disciplined mind does not begin by trying to change the world. It begins by examining the self that interprets the world. Every moment of suffering begins not in the event itself, but in the judgment you attach to it. Someone speaks, and you interpret disrespect. Something fails, and you interpret defeat. Something delays, and you interpret loss. These interpretations are not facts, they are untested conclusions. If you continue accepting every interpretation without examination, you will continue living the same emotional life. The same reactions will produce the same consequences. The same inner disturbances will shape the same external behavior. Nothing will shift because nothing within the source has been corrected. To become unrecognizable, you must interrupt this automatic process. You must begin to question your first reaction instead of obeying it. When a thought arises, you do not accept it immediately. You pause, you examine it, you ask whether it is rooted in reason or impulse. Most people never do this. They believe their first thought is truth. It is not truth. It is simply the fastest reaction shaped by past conditioning. The disciplined person does not identify with every thought. He observes them. He treats thoughts as material to be evaluated, not commands to be followed. This creates distance between stimulus and response. In that distance, freedom begins. Each morning, before you enter the demands of the day, you must set your internal direction. You will encounter things you cannot control. You will meet people whose behavior is not yours to decide. You will face outcomes that do not align with your expectations. This is not unusual. It is life. The question is whether you will allow these events to govern your mind or whether you will govern your response to them. A person who becomes unrecognizable in character is not someone who avoids difficulty. He is someone who meets difficulty without losing reason. He does not allow frustration to replace judgment. He does not allow fear to replace clarity. He does not allow desire to replace discipline. He remains anchored in what is within his control, his choices, his actions, and his attitude. You have spent much of your life reacting to what happens instead of choosing how to meet what happens. Reaction is automatic. Choice is deliberate. Reaction belongs to habit. Choice belongs to reason. Until you shift from reaction to choice, your life will continue repeating itself in different forms, but with the same internal patterns. Examine how quickly you become disturbed when things do not go your way. That disturbance is not caused by the event alone. It is caused by your belief that the event should not be happening. You resist reality in thought before you respond to it in action. This resistance creates unnecessary suffering. To become unrecognizable, you must stop arguing with what has already occurred. The event is complete. What remains is your response. If your energy is spent resisting reality, you have no strength left for responding wisely. Acceptance is not approval, it is clarity. It is seeing what is already true without adding emotional distortion. The disciplined mind separates what belongs to it from what does not. Your judgment belongs to you. Your response belongs to you. Your effort belongs to you. The interpretation of others, the final outcome of events, and the movement of external circumstances do not belong fully to you. When you confuse these boundaries, you suffer unnecessarily. Many people live as though they are responsible for everything. They carry outcomes that are not theirs to carry. They carry opinions that are not theirs to control. They carry expectations that are not theirs to guarantee. This creates constant pressure. The mind becomes overloaded because it tries to govern what cannot be governed. Release what is not yours. Focus completely on what is yours. This shift alone changes the entire structure of the mind. It removes unnecessary anxiety and redirects energy toward meaningful action. Throughout the day, you must practice awareness of your judgments. When frustration appears, do not immediately act on it. Observe it. When disappointment arises, do not immediately accept its conclusion. Examine it. When desire pulls your attention, do not immediately follow it. Question it. This moment of examination is where transformation happens. Without examination, you remain identical to your past self. With examination, you begin to interrupt old patterns. Each interruption weakens the authority of habit. Each moment of awareness strengthens the authority of reason. You must also recognize how often you allow external validation to shape your behavior. You act differently depending on who is watching. You suppress truth to avoid discomfort. You adjust your identity to fit approval. This dependence keeps you predictable and unchanged. To become unrecognizable, you must stop shaping your actions around approval and begin shaping them around principle. You do not need to convince others of your character. You need to ensure your actions align with reason, even when no one recognizes them. Character is built in unobserved moments. At the end of the day, examine yourself with honesty. Where did you react without thinking? Where did you allow emotion to override judgment? Where did you act from impulse instead of principle? Where did you surrender control of your attention? These questions are not meant to create shame. They are meant to reveal patterns that must be corrected. You do not change by wishing to change. You change by seeing clearly what must be corrected and then acting differently when the same situation appears again. Repetition of awareness leads to transformation of behavior. The version of you that exists now is the result of repeated acceptance of certain thoughts and repeated execution of certain actions. If you continue repeating them, nothing will change. If you begin interrupting them, change becomes inevitable over time. Becoming unrecognizable is not a sudden transformation. It is the gradual removal of unconscious behavior and the gradual strengthening of deliberate action. It is the shift from reacting without thought to choosing with awareness. It is the replacement of impulse with reason. Do not wait for external conditions to become easier before you begin this work. External conditions are not the source of transformation. Internal discipline is. The same world will continue around you, but your relationship to it will change as your judgment changes. A person who becomes governed by reason instead of reaction begins to appear different in every situation. He is less disturbed by criticism. He is less dependent on praise. He is less controlled by fear. He is less driven by impulse. This is what makes him unrecognizable. Not because his life becomes free of difficulty, but because his mind no longer responds to difficulty in the same way. The transformation you seek is not far away. It is embedded in your next judgment, your next reaction, your next decision. Every moment gives you an opportunity to remain the same or to begin becoming someone different. Choose awareness over automatic reaction. Choose reason over impulse. Choose responsibility over blame. Choose discipline over comfort. Each choice is a small step away from your old patterns and a step toward a mind that is no longer governed by them. This is how a person becomes unrecognizable, not by changing the world around him, but by changing the way he meets the world within himself.